with us, reluctantly in tow. He wanted to give us everything. The life I had with Dad was always an amazing experience, but the last 14 years have been exceptionally special to me as he's grown to know my family and they've grown to know him. At least once a week, my little family would storm his house and we'd swing open the garage door and we'd say, "Hey, baby, come on in. I'm so glad you're here." He's so consistent, predictable at his kitchen table, surrounded in newspapers and articles he flipped out for all of us in here. He'd be scribbling away furiously on his oversized yellow legal pad in handwriting only Karen or Fran could decipher. But he always kept his candy bowls filled to the brim for my family, his fridge stocked with ice cream and Capri Suns, and he was always anticipating our arrival. He always said it was the best part of his week. It's the part of my week I'm gonna miss. Brittany said she'll keep his candy bowls full at her house, so her grocery bills probably go up. While I would sit and talk with Dad, the kids would come up and ask for something, inevitably. And Dad would say, "What's mine is yours. Everything in here belongs to you." And occasionally he'd say, "Except that." But what's mine is yours. That's the Dad's heart that I knew. He was so generous. Before he left for heaven, all of our family, mine and Brittany's family, Mom, John, were all camped out at his house. And he kept telling all of us over and over, "I just want you all to be happy. Be happy together." And we kept reminding him, "We are happy and we love you." His legacy was just how he made us feel. And that's always loved and cared for. The last 8 months have been an emotional roller coaster, but ended in the most beautiful way. I always thought I'd be in agony over his death, and it hurts. But because of God's goodness and grace, I've truly experienced the peace that passes understanding. Brittany's going to share with you guys why we have so much peace, even in his death. I'm sorry.
Hey everyone. Like she said, thank you so much for coming today. I lived in California for the last 7 years, and with my family, my husband and my baby, we just felt like the Lord told us to move home, sell our house, get rid of everything, and move back here home to Ponte Vedra this last year. So we moved across country in September, and in God's timing, it was right when we got in town was the first time that my dad went into the hospital for congestive heart failure. Now before then, because of COVID, he wouldn't let any of us in his house because he was really scared of catching COVID. Even when I brought my baby home to see him for the first time, we had to stand outside and he stood inside in the air conditioning. But I had no idea when we chose to move home, when we knew we needed to move home, what the Lord had in store for us during this season. This last 8 months has been really, really hard, but I'm so thankful. I'm thankful because as soon as we came, he allowed us to move in with him, me and my family. He allowed Jessica and her kids and my mom to start coming over again without masks. We got to spend so much time with him over this past season that we would have never had. I'm also thankful that we got the opportunity to serve him in this time. He was declining in his health, and he would never let anybody do anything for him. But this was the first time that we were able to actually give back to him and do things for him that he was not able to do for himself, and for that I'm forever grateful. About a month ago, his dementia was getting really bad. It had progressively gotten worse. And one day I came into his room, and he was totally out of his mind. He was like, I've completely lost my mind. I feel so guilty, and I don't know why. I feel like I've ruined your life and your sister's life, and I can't remember. I cannot stick with a thought for more than a second to figure it out. I'm just losing my mind, and I don't know what to do. I just feel horrible, and I feel horrible guilt. And so I said, Dad, we have all sinned and fallen short. Even if you haven't done anything, but even if you have, Jesus forgives you. His blood has paid for anything you've ever done, and it's okay. You are forgiven. Can I pray with you? And he said, okay, so we prayed, and he actually accepted the Lord in that moment. Over the next 2 days, we saw a miracle. He walked for the first time in a long time. His mind was completely clear again. We had our dad back. I was shocked by what had happened. He was Janae, his amazing CNA that was basically our roommate for the last 8 months because she had 12-hour shifts with us, and she was just so loving and took care of my dad so faithfully. Thank you. So thankful for you, Janae. She texted us and was like, good morning, you all. I just want to let you know that we got him into the shower for the first time in a long time, and he was quoting Shakespeare the whole time. He said, I feel like a new man. And from then on, he had his personality back, his jokes back, his memories back, his mind was clear. But I still had it in my heart that I just wasn't sure if he had really remembered that moment that we prayed for his salvation. And not for Jesus, and not even for his salvation, but for me, I really wanted more confirmation. I just really wanted to know that he knows Jesus. And I say that because a lot of you know that he did come to church. He came to church almost weekly for a really long time. But even in a recent conversation I had with him a few months ago, he said, I just can't commit to something that I don't understand. I have peace when I go to church, but I can't give my life to something that doesn't make sense, that there's no proof. And I was like, okay, but, faith is believing in something that you can't see, but you can't talk somebody into something that they need to experience themselves. So the week that he passed away, we went to the hospital with him, and my whole family was crammed into a small ER room. The whole time he was telling jokes, which was amazing because we were having the conversation about staying in the hospital or coming home on hospice. And he chose that day that he didn't want to fight anymore. He wanted to be in his home and come home on hospice. So we said, okay, let's do it. We are doing what you want to do. We want you to be comfortable and happy. We just want to spend time with you. So we came home, and the next morning I got a text from his CNA that said, hey, he's refusing to take his medication and he's requesting that you come. So I just ran back into his room, and he was like, come here, baby. And I just crawled on the bed with him, and he grabbed my hand and he said, I understand. I want to go to heaven. I know Jesus loves me, and I understand. And he must have finally gotten that encounter and that understanding that he needed to accept Jesus. I don't know what happened, but he was so intellectual and so intelligent, and he was never able to give himself over, and he must have had an encounter with the Lord that made it so real that he wanted to finally choose heaven. We had a lot of experiences with him that last week where he was encountering heaven, encountering angels, just amazing supernatural experiences that are unexplainable, but were really confirming to us where he was going. Another sweet story I wanted to share was one day Mom and I were sitting with him in his room, and he said, I'm getting my membership. And I was like, where are you getting your membership to, Dad? And he said, the kingdom. Now, my dad had no language to use kingdom to mean heaven. That was not really in his vocabulary. So still, I was a little confused. And I said, well, what does it look like? And he said, oh, it's gorgeous. It's beautiful. And I was still really unsure, like, well, who's there? And he said, Jesus. And in that moment, I knew that he was encountering Jesus in heaven. And I was so thankful. I was so thankful that in his faithfulness, Jesus showed his face to my dad because he wanted him so badly. He wanted to be with him for the rest of eternity. The also funny thing about that story is that Dad had a membership everywhere, and you guys know. He had a membership to the lodge in Ponte Vedra. He held on to his Palm Beach Yacht Club membership long after he could drive to Palm Beach because it meant so much to him. But this membership to heaven was the one thing that he couldn't pay for. And at the end, Dad said, it's all been paid for. The other thing that I kept thinking when I was sitting around in his room, seeing Sloan and Lachlan and Jess and Mom just holding his hands, I was just sitting there and I just had this revelation that I know, but I knew so much clearer in that moment, that was nothing is as important as love. Loving God, loving your family, the relationships that you have. Because in that moment, all of the treasures that my dad ever had, all of the places we traveled, all of the things that he had built, his house, his grand, amazing, beautiful house, everything that money could buy, none of that mattered at all in that moment. What mattered was that he knew that we loved him, and that's all we could tell him. We love you, Dad. We love you. And he would tell us he loved us back, and we held his hands until his last breath. And from that moment on, we have had that peace that surpasses understanding, knowing that he's in heaven. And I'm so, so thankful to be able to stand here today and to say that with such joy.